Well, Treme is a magical neighborhood. It is, in fact, the oldest continuously inhabited African-American neighborhood in the country. It's the oldest neighborhood of free people of African descent in America. I'd like to think that if the French Quarter is the heart of New Orleans, then Treme is certainly the blood that flows through it, that gives it its energy and its soul. And Claiborne Avenue was the centerpiece of that. The culture of New Orleans that makes us so unique that people come to New Orleans to experience is that culture that used that Claiborne Avenue strip as its lifeblood. That's where people every single weekend would fill the neutral ground, as we call it. They lived that culture on those grounds every day, but certainly on weekends. In the 1960s, with the advent of the I-10 overpass, which essentially destroyed Claiborne Avenue, which was the heartblood of Treme. This was an area that was the cradle for the formulation of jazz music, and it was demolished. I mean, how short-sighted is that? Famous houses of people like Homer Plessy just ripped up. I mean, not moved, not disassembled, just demolished. So from a time that just dates back as far as they can remember, when you had this huge, wide, oak tree laned corridor, some of the trees there over 100 years old, that provided a canopy for all of the culture that we hold dear, to a sterile, concrete overpass that is loud, dangerous, and extremely unattractive and, shall we say, not human friendly, not culture friendly. For instance, on the Claiborne Avenue before the I-10, some families had their own tree. They didn't own the tree. They didn't prune the tree, but everybody knew that that's where they met. Their family met on our great holidays. So the lifeblood of a city, not as an artery for moving traffic, but as an artery for replenishing the culture, was ripped out. Now we face a situation where, once again, this area is being considered for another major transformation. If the I-10 is taken down and the area becomes much more attractive to developers and people who are moving back into the city, then many people fear that there will be a gentrification as a consequence of that. And that gentrification would make this place almost too expensive for the people who have lived here and whose families have lived here for so long to remain. And so that could be a consequence of this. And so it's important that the interests of the people who live here, who have preserved what could be preserved here, is adequately taken into account. So for a major transformative event like revisioning the I-10 corridor, my dream is that we actually ask the people who use it and who make it now still one of the most attractive places in the city in spite of its design.